I hope everyone has their sword at the ready because Shimosa is going to be hitting NA very soon. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here, and today's Servant Spotlight we'll be taking a look at the only Oni who games more than I do, Archer Inferno. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. Now, on to Archer stats. Archer Inferno has a max HP of 10,804 and a max attack of 9,946, which becomes 9,448 due to her Archer class modifier. Compared to her fellow 4-star archers, she has one of the highest attack stats. However, in turn, she has the lowest HP as well. On the whole, she stacks up the same when compared to the other 4 stars as well. Very low HP, but top tier attack. This glass cannon stat spread is commonly seen in Berserkers, but because Archer Inferno is, well, an archer, it means she should be able to dish out high damage while not being quite as squishy as a Berserker. Looking at her skills, her first skill is Demonic Nature of Oni, rank B. It increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns between 9 and 19%. It also increases her own NP strength for 3 turns between 18 and 28%, both depending on level. Her second skill is Knowledge of Melee Combat, rank B. It increases her own critical star gather rate for 3 turns between 300 and 600%, and increases the critical star drop rate of all allies for 3 turns between 30 and 50%, both depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Blood Rush, rank A. It applies Guts to herself 1 time, lasting for 5 turns, reviving her with between 1000 and 2000 HP, and it also increases her maximum HP for 5 turns between 1000 and 3000, both depending on level. As for her passives, she does have Magic Resistance rank B, which increases debuff resist by 17.5%, Independent Action rank A, which increases her crit strength by 10%, and Madness Enhancement rank E, which increases Buster Card effectiveness by 2%. Taking a look at her deck and Noble Phantasm, Archer Inferno has an Arts Buster deck with Quick, Arts, Buster, Buster, and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm on Ararikia Sowaka deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 and 1000% damage modifier, depending on level. It also decreases the critical hit rate of that enemy by 20%, and inflicts burn for 5 turns, dealing 1000 damage. It also inflicts Ignite, which increases the effects of burn for 5 turns, between 100 and 300%, depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at her cards, we see that her quick card hits 3 times, her art hits twice, her buster card hits twice, and her extra attack hits 5 times. She has an NP gain rate of 0.87% and a star rate of 7.9%. Both her Noble Phantasm gain and star generating are just average due to an overall lack of hits on her cards. For once, we actually have a pretty straightforwardly designed servant. Archer Inferno is built from the ground up to be an attacker. Her stats are heavily tilted toward her attack over her HP, and counting her Noble Phantasm, she has 3 Buster cards in her deck. And if that weren't enough firepower, her skill set should really drive home the point. Her first skill, Demonic Nature of Oni, increases the party's attack and additionally buffs her own Noble Phantasm damage. This is basically Charisma and Tactics both rolled into one skill, and it's quite good because of that. Not only does it give all your allies a respectable damage buff for most of the battle, but it also acts similarly to Mana Burst because it can give more than 50% bonus damage to your own Noble Phantasm. Archer Inferno's second skill, Knowledge of Melee Combat, performs a similar role of buffing the team as well as herself. This time, it increases everyone's star gen by 50% while increasing Inferno's own star gather rate by 600%. This skill alone makes her a very strong choice for crit-based teams because she can both fetch stars for herself and increase your team's star output considerably, reducing your need for a hard, dedicated star generator and making critting much more consistent. Finally, Archer Inferno does have a defensive option as well in Blood Rush. This skill pairs both hard and soft defense by giving Archer Inferno a heal alongside a Guts. The interesting thing to note about this skill though is that it's not just a heal, it's a max HP increase. So going back to her stats, despite having such low HP for a 4-star servant, Archer Inferno can effectively compensate for that weakness with this skill, which pushes her HP into 5-star territory. All of Archer Inferno's skills are good, but you should prioritize leveling Demonic Nature of Oni first for the higher uptime and overall utility, followed by Knowledge of Melee Combat, and then Blood Rush last since you're going to be playing offense first. Archer Inferno's Noble Phantasm is a single target nuke that inflicts burn and decreases enemy crit chance. Unfortunately, these extra effects don't matter much because the burn damage is trivial even with Ignite, and the crit chance decrease is minimal. But what Archer Inferno's Noble Phantasm is good for is doing a whole hell of a lot of damage. As I mentioned, her first skill is a slightly stronger Mana Burst, and a Mana Burst on a single target Noble Phantasm is absolutely nutty. Because of this, Archer Inferno is capable of melting most Sabers or Berserker servants with ease. But while most of her damage will come from her NP nuke, you shouldn't underestimate her basic attack damage either. Unlike most NP-centric servants, she does do good damage in between Noble Phantasms, thanks to her short cooldown Charisma-like skill and her ability to crit consistently. She is a perfect fit into the current Buster crit meta and probably one of the best servants you can pair alongside both Waver and Merlin, as she synergizes perfectly with their kits. And while Guts may not be as sexy as Evade or Invincibility, it is still a form of hard defense. Coupled with her heal, Archer Inferno can be tenacious. She is by no means a tank, and she will still need some defensive support, but she can absolutely take a big hit or two without crumbling like most glass cannons do. Where Archer Inferno falls flat, however, is in her lack of self-sufficiency. Both her NP gain and star generating are just average. Even with her own star gen buff, she doesn't reliably produce enough stars to feed herself. And likewise, without Art's crits, it can take a while to charge your gauge between Noble Phantasms. In other words, Archer Inferno needs crits. She needs to get into a rhythm, otherwise her damage can fall off hard. It also doesn't help that all of her skills have different cooldowns, which makes consistency a little more difficult. Thankfully, there are many servants who can set the rhythm that Archer needs. While she is built to be purely offensive, there are a couple of routes you can take, which in turn dictates the support you're going to want. The first option available to Archer Inferno is the Crit Buster team. Because of her raw damage and star gathering capabilities, she makes for one of the best Buster crit servants in the game. If you want to build a team around that, I highly suggest pairing her with Gil, Caesar, or Brynhilda. Gil is an excellent star generator, especially if he's buffed by Archer Inferno's skills, while Caesar also does a nice job of star generating and has a nice crit damage buff to boot. And Brynhilda has the only targetable crit star gather buff available, which does help for when Inferno's second skill is on cooldown. The other route you can go is to focus on pure damage and survivability instead of depending on the RNG of crits. In this case, you're going to want to maximize Inferno's NP damage. So servants like Shakespeare, Ryko Lancer, and Helena are good here. Shakespeare has a solid Buster buff and Noble Phantasm charge to drastically increase the power of your NP damage. Helena is very similar, providing both an NP battery and a Buster buff. Ryko Lancer doesn't give any NP charge, but she does have access to some of the best Buster buffs around. Archer Inferno's Bond CE is Feelings across 3 generations. This increases party Buster and NP damage by 10%. This is a strong Bond craft essence if you're not going for any sort of crit team. If you are going for a crit team, then you might want to use craft essences that buff both Buster and crit damage like Joint Recital and Victor from the Moon, or go full crit with Holy Night Supper and Lunar Hot Spring. If crit damage isn't your thing, then you should focus on using CEs that are going to buff your overall Noble Phantasm damage like Limited Zero, Black Grail, Halloween Princess, and Kaleido Ruby. Halloween Princess is best for quick fights, while Black Grail is best for pure damage, and the burn can be offset by your heal. In the future, be on the lookout for Starry Nights. This is an excellent choice for crit teams, as it gives Buster damage, crit damage, and starting NP charge. Overall, Archer Inferno is a strong, solid attacker. She can do a lot of single target damage, both with her Noble Phantasm and with her crits, making her one of the best boss killer archers around. She provides great team utility with her charisma and star generating buffs, and she has good survivability despite her low HP. She does suffer from a lack of star generating and NP gain though, so it can be hard to get the most from her without ample support. She can also run into some cooldown issues since all of her skills are on a different timer, and she is also a bit too overly reliant on crits for her own good. So with all that in mind, she gets an A- from me. Her damage output is top tier, and she's excellent for most difficult fights, while also being able to provide good utility for the team. Although it would be great if she could provide just a bit more versatility like a stun or a meaningful debuff. And those are my thoughts on Archer Inferno, aka Shimosa's #1 waifu. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be putting out more spotlights for all the upcoming servants, so if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you all in the next servant spotlight. So Roni out. Later.